Welcome to the Binge List. I am your host, Paul Chapo, and today we take a first look at WandaVision. It came out yesterday on Disney Plus, the first 2 episodes, and it was kind of hard to get into at first because it was in black and white. There's very few things I can watch in black and white, Casablanca, Schindler's List, but I'm just such a technophile, it's hard for me to get into anything with black and white. So that was my first problem. But it's kind of funny to see some of the reactions on the internet, on Facebook and Twitter. A lot of people are saying they were bored. They just don't get it. And first of all, even if not knowing what it's based on, it's obviously based on House of M. But we'll get to that. I liked it just for the fact that it was a parody of the 50s and to a broader extent the 60s too, because the shows is actually parodying or making fun of are shows from the 60s and 70s. And I'm talking about Bewitched, I'm talking about I Dream of Jeannie. In fact, I think Bewitched started earlier in 1964. I Dream of Jeannie started in 1965. So yeah, it was more a parody of those shows, which are in color. But I enjoyed it just because I like the little part where Vision goes to work and he can't even figure out what his company makes. That's kind of an indication of how hokey a lot of those shows from the 1950s are, like Leave the Beaver, where, you know, the father works, the wife stays at home, the whole fantasy life that conservatives just worship. It was nice to see that kind of torn apart a little bit and mocked. So I enjoyed it for that reason. I actually thought the writing in the episodes as sitcoms was pretty funny. I think if you actually took this show and showed it to audiences in the 50s or 60s, they would laugh at it. Because like I said, it borrows so much from Bewitched. The fact that Wanda Maximoff is using her powers to control these crazy situations that she continually gets into. That's all from Bewitched. And to a lesser extent, I Dream of Jeannie. But yeah, I enjoyed that part of it once I was able to get past the black and white. Let's get into what the show is actually about. I think you're going to have to be patient with this show. A lot of people think, is this just a sitcom? No, it's not just a sitcom. There's a lot of indications that something else is going on. Let me talk about the House of M. The House of M was an 8 comic book series made by Brian Michael Bendis. It involved Wanda Maximoff changing reality. And what I mean by that is, in the comic book series, her children die, and to cope with the loss of her children, she completely changes reality. Now, there has been some indication that she is pretty powerful, but this goes way beyond what they've done in MCU so far. The fact that she's able to create her own reality. Now, in the comic book, I think she changes the whole planet. There's some indication to me that that's not the case in the show. And I'll get to that when I go over the Easter eggs. But as you know, in the MCU, Wanda Maximoff has lost her brother and Vision, her lover. So I think this is her way of dealing with that trauma. She's created this fake universe where she can't be her. And that's basically what a 50s or 60s sitcom was supposed to do. It's supposed to be comfort food for housewives, basically. So she's reverted back to that. I don't know at this point whether she's actually being controlled by outside force, but there is something going on, because at the end of the first episode, you see this little control room and this zoom out from the television. So there is some indication that a group is maybe controlling her in some way, but we have to just wait and see. So in the House of M, let me just point out, there was a lot of things about mutants, and as we already have been shown, Wanda Maximoff and her brother were actually given powers by Hydra. Okay, and they had to do that because at the time they didn't have the rights. That is Marvel and Disney. They didn't have the rights to the mutants. That was over at 20th Century Fox. So since then, those rights have reverted back to them because Disney went ahead and bought 20th Century Fox. But I'm just explaining why they had to go to the route that they did, and that Wanda Maximoff is not a mutant in the MCU. And she's actually the daughter of Magneto, in case you're not a comic book nerd. She is the daughter of Magneto, and in the House of M, there's a lot of things about mutants, and I think she even changes the world to get rid of mutants at some point. So obviously they can't go in that direction since they just got those rights back, and her, history has already been set up. Okay, so that's where the show is headed. I don't know how they're going to adapt it. Like I said, there's so much about mutants in that comic book. I don't know how they're really going to adapt it. But like I said, there is some indication that there's an outside group. And I will get to that in a second. But first, let's go over the Easter eggs a little bit. The first Easter egg that I saw, well, actually, this wasn't the first, but this is one I really appreciate, was the fact that Teyonah Parris was one of the characters on the show. Now, why is that significant? Well, if you are a Mad Men fan, she was Don Draper's black secretary. I think the last 3 seasons or something. She was his secretary for a long time because he kept getting involved with his secretaries, and I guess Don Draper didn't find black women attractive, so they finally got him a black secretary so he would stop. And in fact, he actually married one of his secretaries at some point. But so they got him a black secretary to kind of make sure that she was just there to do work and nothing else. So I appreciated that, because if you're going to do a parody of a 60s sitcom, why not bring in actors from the other parody of the 60s, which was Mad Men? And so I appreciated her being cast. She just fits in that time period for some reason. Okay, the second Easter egg I would say would have to be the Toastmate 2000, because as you can see here, it is made by Stark Industries. And I'm not expecting Stark Industries to be involved, really. Yeah, I just thought that was just some fun thing they threw in to remind you, hey, you are in the MCU here, and you're Avengers adjacent, so to speak. Okay, number 3. In the opening of episode 2, we see this cartoon sequence. That was a direct tribute to Bewitched, which also has a cartoon sequence to open up. So I really enjoyed that, of course. Let me get into a little bit deeper, though. This is the really, really important Easter egg. Probably the most important. Near the end of the second episode, we see a beekeeper getting out of a manhole. Now, this is significant because this is obviously a reference to AIM, which is a group of science terrorists, which is also an offshoot of Hydra. AIM stands for Advanced Idea Mechanics. And the superheroes in the Marvel Comics refer to their henchmen as the beekeeper guys. So that's significant. That is an indication that AIM is somehow manipulating Wanda, or maybe they're trying to exploit whatever she did to reality. We won't know until a future episode. And if you needed any confirmation that, yes, this is absolutely AIM, the 5th Easter egg was the commercial that we see for Stucker Swiss-made watches. And as you can see here on the dial of the watch, it says Hydra. And Stucker, in case you need reminding, was Baron Wolfgang von Strucker. He is the Hydra guy that gave Wanda Maximoff her powers. He appeared in the Age of Ultron. I think he actually died at some point. But he started AIM, this organization of scientific terrorists. So that's what those references are. And yes, I am excited about what this portends. It looks like it's going to be very interesting. I would hope that they get away a little from the sitcom aspect of it. It has some kind of Pleasantville overtones. That's another thing. My bonus Easter egg, the fact that Wanda finds this helicopter in bushes and it's in full color. That's an indication that her reality is unraveling, kind of like what happened in Pleasantville, the movie. So I'm kind of encouraged to see that, because it tells me that yes, there's going to be some kind of unraveling in the future, but we just have to wait and see how long it takes for them to get there and whether they actually can sustain a show based on this premise. Because like I've already said, the House of M was only a comic book. So we'll see if it carries on past this first season, but I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing and I'm very excited for what it means. But that's all I got for today. I'd like to thank my subscribers, encourage you, hit that subscribe button, give me a comment down below. Did I miss any Easter eggs? I'm sure I did. Let me know in the comments. Give me a like, give me a dislike, whatever. And I will see you when I see you. Thanks for watching.